Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. COVID-19 infection rates are set to be soaring across South Africa as a result of the highly mutated Omicron variant of the coronavirus. However, according to health officials, fewer people have died or require hospital treatment compared with previous waves of the disease. Health Minister Joe Pala said the data does not mean that Omicron is less virulent, but rather that vaccines are preventing serious illness. South Africa on Wednesday recorded its highest number of cases since the spread of the pandemic, driven by the rapid spread of Omicron. But Dr. Michelle Groom of the National Institute for Communicable Diseases says that hospitalizations have not increased at such a dramatic rate.
So we believe that it might not necessarily just be that Omicron is less virulent, but we believe that this coverage of immunization, but also in addition, natural immunity for people who have already had contact with the virus, is also adding to the protection. That's why we see illness. The health department will ask the NCCC in the next few days as to whether we should review the restrictions, as we announced just yesterday that the last NCCC has decided to remain at where we are and been tasked as the health department to continue to monitor the situation and report back in the coming week.
Just in terms of Omicron, for the sequences that we do have for November, the Omicron variant is dominating all of the sequences. We're still awaiting some sequencing from one or two of the provinces, but indications are that the increases in case numbers are being driven by this variant, and it has rapidly displaced Delta, as it is doing in many other countries. Just in terms of the number of deaths, also starting to see slight increase in deaths nationally. But once again, this level is very much lower even than the baseline period we were seeing between the second and third waves, and slightly more increases in the public versus the private sector.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling on all countries to work in a coordinated way to defeat COVID-19. He made this appeal during his end-of-year press stakeout when he addressed the deficits in the governance of both the pandemic and international financial system. According to Mr. Guterres, the COVID-19 virus is not going away. However, he stresses that the world cannot defeat a pandemic in an uncoordinated way.
The strategy of vaccine hoarding, the strategy of vaccine nationalism, or the strategy of vaccine diplomacy have failed. This new variant has demonstrated this failure. And so my hope is that countries understand that from now on, we need to have an equitable way to address the pandemic, or we will all be victims of it.
A civil society group in Ghana, Advocates for Christ Ghana, is urging the government not to make vaccination of the coronavirus disease compulsory. The group is of the view that any attempt to force vaccines on the citizenry would be an abuse of their fundamental human rights. Well, this comes as the government in recent weeks has indicated that vaccination would be mandatory in order to access public services. The Ghana Health Service, for instance, has made vaccination compulsory for unvaccinated persons who will arrive in the country effective December 29, 2021. Plans to also vaccinate all children aged 15 years and above and all workers in schools before the next academic year. Well, joining us now is Fred Smith, the health correspondent with Joy News TV in Accra, Ghana. Hello, Fred. Thank you for speaking to us on Network Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, Ghana's health service has all these laid out plans on vaccinating children aged 15 years and above and also workers in school. That's before the next academic year. Also, they're saying they'll be barring unvaccinated persons who will arrive in the country effective December 29th. Are there enough vaccines in the country to achieve this aim?
Well, I think there are enough vaccines. We currently have, according to the president, when he had the address, we have 17 million vaccines so far. And, you know, the target for Ghana has been 20 million. So if you have 17 million vaccines available, then it means that Ghana will be able to get very close to the target. But the president also mentioned that some 9 million vaccines are coming in within the next few days. And so that will exceed the threshold. The challenge, though, is if Ghanaians or people in Ghana are willing and will go for the vaccines. And that remains to be seen.
Well, the president, just like you mentioned, gave an address on Wednesday, and he also mentioned that the country's borders will remain shut so as to avoid a new wave of infection. Tell us more about his speech on Wednesday.
Well, on Wednesday, the president spoke and said that the measures were being strengthened. The protocols were going to be enforced strictly. If you have to go out, you have to wear a face mask. If you have to go out, you have to, especially if you are getting into a shop or a mall where other people are, you'd have to wash your hands, you'd have to cover yourself. And so those measures were being strengthened, and the president was very emphatic about that. And they wanted people who are attending events during this festive season to have vaccinated before they go to any event.
And how are Ghanaians reacting to this, that the borders will remain closed for now? And also the mandatory vaccination, like I mentioned, the health service saying by December 29th. This is sure to have an impact on businesses and livelihoods, isn't it?
Yeah, it is going to have a significant impact. Already, people who live around the border areas, those who live in Aflao, that's just the town before the border with Togo, live. And some of them live in Aflao, but they would have to cross to go and sleep in Togo, in the next town in Togo. And so that has been a challenge, and they've been complaining about that. There were two demonstrations, one at the border with Togo and the other at the border with Ivory Coast. But the government has explained that those measures will remain in force. The president mentioned it in his Wednesday address and said that these borders will remain closed because that's what is required to be able to keep the virus at bay. So far, the government has been implementing it. The challenge for that is that people are able to use unapproved routes to enter the country through those borders. But where the strength really is the airport.
All right then, Fred Smith, health correspondent with the Joy News TV in Accra. Thank you for speaking to us. Let's look at the situation in Ethiopia. The United Nations Human Rights Council have held an urgent session on Ethiopia amid reports of further atrocities being committed in the Tigray region. The Friday session, which was requested by the European Union, will be deciding whether to appoint an international team to investigate violations that human rights groups say may amount to war crimes. The United Nations said all sides in the deepening conflicts in northern Ethiopian region are committing severe human rights violations, while the European Union says a number of violations may amount to crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, Ethiopian Ambassador Zenebe Kedebe has rejected the resolution and says it would not cooperate with any of such commission. Politics now. Cote d'Ivoire's government has resumed talks with opposition parties in a bid to boost unity and democracy in the country. The political dialogue had stopped after the sudden death of Prime Minister Hamed Bakayoko back in March last year. On Thursday, about 21 major political parties joined in the dialogue, with Prime Minister Patrick Achi, who was leading the talk, saying it's a sign of strength for the Ivorian democracy. He insists that different political party leaders should understand the benefits of peace and encourage them to work for national cohesion and the stability of the country. Pascal Afi Nguesen, the head of the opposition Ivorian Popular Front, said his party is welcoming the dialogue with hope. Local elections are scheduled for 2023, as well as a reform of the National Electoral Commission, and these are some of the major points that are to be discussed in the forum, which the civil society will also be taking a major role in the discussion. The World Health Organization is launching a new global competency standards for refugees and migrants for the health services that's aimed at strengthening countries' capacity to provide health services to refugees and migrants worldwide. Well, the launch is for the International Migrants Day 2021 that's happening on the 18th of December, and it's to define the range of competencies that should be incorporated into health workers' education and practices, even as they provide health services for migrants and refugees.
When we are talking about migration and health aspect related to migration, we are referring to 1 billion people worldwide. 1 billion people made of refugees, international migrants, internal migrants, asylum seekers, IDPs or internally displaced persons. So a very diverse group of people which moves and is extremely relevant for the health system. It is important that the health system is shaped up in order to be accessible, effective, fair, and the competency standard we are launching today is actually aiming to fulfill this need in supporting healthcare workers to be more competent, to be more effective, and capable to address the diversity represented by a population which today include migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. The different needs might be manifested in relation to the experience during the migratory process or the experience or the exposure to risk factors at the country of origin, transit, and destination. This is why it's important to contextualize and to know very well how the culture, how the language, how the religion, how the experience, individual experience of ethnical groups living in different countries might be influencing the health outcomes, and to address them when we are opening access to service for these people.
Detained former Malian Prime Minister Soumelu Boubeye Maiga has been admitted to a hospital in Bamako after his health deteriorated. According to his family, a potentially serious infection was detected on the former minister last week. Mali's Supreme Court this week rejected Mr. Maiga's lawyer's request for his provisional release after the lawyers had cited health reasons and his conditions of detention to justify their request for his provisional release. Mr. Maiga was arrested at the end of August over a case involving the purchase of military equipment and an aircraft of former President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. No date has been set for his trial. A court in Paris has found a French-Rwandan man guilty of complicity in genocide and crimes against humanity during the massacres of Tutsis in Rwanda in 1994. Mr. Claude Muhayimana has been sentenced to 14 years in jail. He worked as a driver at a hotel in western Rwanda and is accused of transporting Hutu militia to various locations where Tutsis were killed. However, he has denied the charges. He's said to have been married to a Tutsi woman at the time, and investigators also said he had hidden some Tutsis at risk of death and also helped some to flee. Welcome to our Africa Tech segment. A young Nigerian inventor and embedded systems engineer, Oluwatobi Oyinlola, has built a solar-powered outdoor workstation called Solar Poacher to aid working outside. According to Oluwatobi, who is a graduate of Taisholari University of Education in Ogun State, Solar Poacher provides users with internet, stable electricity, and seating spaces.
Oluwatobi Oyinlola is a telecommunications graduate of Taisholari University of Education in Ijebu-Ode area of Ogun State. The young tech genius, also an embedded systems engineer, has over the years been making his mark in the industry by providing Internet of Things solutions, as he is fondly called Internet of Toby among his peers. But Toby, despite his wins, is determined to continue to make an impact in his society, especially his alma mater.
Solar Poacher gives you three things: power, internet, and a space to work.
Solar Poacher is an outdoor solar charging station that provides off-grid clean energy to power mobile and portable devices, LED lighting, Wi-Fi, and IoT booking capabilities in the form of a canopied table with seating. Building Solar Poacher came naturally to Toby with his background in IoT, and so within a space of about 3 months, he built the workstation using materials readily available to him.
The materials were sourced locally. It was constructed in Ibadan. I was able to get a few technicians to work together to kind of physically build the whole workstation. It was COVID period. We couldn't source anything from outside Nigeria, so we have to use all the materials that are available in Nigeria. For example, the IoT parts, there's no way to do printed circuit board outside Nigeria during COVID, so I hand soldered everything, just with my hand. So which makes it more difficult, but then we're able to deliver the job, and that's really important.
Toby built the workstation for his university, and with the help of the school's administration, he was able to position it at a strategic point. Accessing the functions of the station can only be done via a booking system on the school's portal.
For a student, a qualified student, of course, they have a matric number, so automatically it's integrated to their school portal. They only need to go to the school website, which is workstation.whatever school, like Taisholari, and then book like the workstation. They have only 2 hours a day. Imagine a school of over 23,000, so we can't accommodate all the students, so we give them access to use it at least 2 hours a day. So when they book the workstation, they need to come to the physical workstation. They can't use it in their house. So when they reach the workstation, they need to log in with their, the same matric number and the password, and the workstation will dedicate a seat number for them. They need to look for the seat number and just go ahead and sit on it, and then turn on the sockets, and it works for that single student.
Having stable electricity is a concern for many in the country, as a lot of households turn to alternative power sources for use. Hence why Oluwatobi thought of using solar power that is not only free for all, but has no environmental hazard.
We all talk about the CO2 emission as well. We want a world that is free of emission. Using the power of sun, it's free. It makes it even more important for us to use solar panel. We don't want to use the normal because it's not even always available. It's not constant. But for this, it's always going to be available. It's one of the reasons why we decided to use solar, and of course, environmental reason as well.
Oluwatobi used his personal funds for this project, but hopes to get partnerships from schools and organizations that want workspaces within their environment. Toby was on the engineering team working on Elon Musk's Hyperloop and has invented over 15 IoT-enabled hardware products, many with a mission to change the world.
Kinshasa residents are welcoming UNESCO's decision to add the Congolese Rumba to its list of global cultural treasures. Pride is the feeling in the capital as the African form of music and dance. The World Heritage List, although some older fans feel the genre lacks the storytelling power it had back in the day.
The Congolese Rumba, an African genre of music and dance, has been added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. Its unique sound melds the drumming of enslaved Africans with the melodies of Spanish colonizers. The bid for UNESCO protected status was put forth jointly by Democratic Republic of Congo and Congo Republic. Andre Yoka is head of the National Institute of Arts in Kinshasa.
It was a great moment of emotion after so many years of investigation, research and testimonies, but also a duty of gratitude to the history of music in this country, to those who created this music, the artists, the bands, the entrepreneurs, the trainers, the fans. Right now, I'm really thinking of these people. Without them, we wouldn't have all this success.
For Rumba fans and residents of Kinshasa, it's a thing of pride.
I'd say it's a source of pride because it took centuries, years. When I say years, it's in relation to the addition of Rumba to the UNESCO World Heritage List. It was done in 2016, and it took 5 years for UNESCO to get its act together and understand. So, it's a great source of pride for us Congolese.
UNESCO, the United Nations Cultural and Scientific Agency, says that Rumba was used for celebration and mourning in private, public and religious spaces. Born in the melting pot of 19th century Cuba, Rumba was re-exported to Africa in the early 20th century in Ville. It found a ready audience in the two Congos, which recognized the rhythm as theirs.
Sure to get your Rumba music this weekend. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. Enjoy your weekend.